Okay, so right back into it. This is part 2 of my deep dive into the Nintendo Partner Direct. The first part was nearly 2 hours long, so I had to split it. We have exactly 20 games left to cover, so I'm sure this is going to be a big one as well. And probably take my poor temporary internet connection a couple of days to upload. Sorry if you've been waiting with bated breath. But I promise this is going to be a fun one. Lots of cool games to cover. I have a lot to say and some spicy opinions. If you've just come straight from part 1, don't worry, we're going to jump in pretty quickly, or as always, you can skip around with the timestamps in the description and pinned comment. But if you've arrived here through the mysterious algorithm, welcome. In part 1, we had my predictions for the show, my live reactions while watching it, and my after-show analysis, including a breakdown of how many of the 26 games were exclusive to Switch 2, Switch 1, or available on both, and what that might mean moving forward for the future of both consoles. I think it was pretty interesting, so you might want to go check it out. Link will be in the description and pinned comment as always. We also started a tier list where I'm talking in detail about each game announced in the order in which they were announced in the presentation, and briefly talking about what I think about them and trying to rank them in how excited I personally am for them all. We only had enough time to cover 6 games, so this second and final part will cover a full 20 games. For those who didn't watch part 1 or just need a quick recap, I will very quickly go over where we currently stand and what I thought about the 6 games. And just as we did in part 1, if you're watching on YouTube, I'll put up trailer footage of the games when talking about them, and then the updated tier list image when making each decision, so you get to see the order changing in real time. So we'll get right into the next 20 games to complete our list just after I quickly read the podcast introduction. And if you usually skip the introductions, that's okay. I appreciate many of you have heard them before. Thank you for being a loyal listener and coming back. Just please do me a favor and drop a like and maybe a comment while you're skipping. It really does help me. Thank you so much. And if you are a repeat friend of the show, listening to multiple episodes, I hope you've remembered to subscribe. We are so close to our first 1,000 subs on YouTube. I can almost taste it. I have a very special episode planned once we hit it. Right. Very quick speed read through the intro, then on with the tier list. Let's go! Hi everyone, welcome to Daily Switch 2, a podcast covering everything related to the Nintendo Switch 2, with at least one new episode or video uploaded per day to YouTube, Spotify, and your favourite major platforms. My name is Sam, and I've been a gamer since the 1980s. I've worked in the entertainment industry since I was a teenager, including as a games journalist, producer of gaming documentaries and shows, and I'm even programming multiple indie video games, including 4 which will be released on the Switch and hopefully Switch 2, so be sure to subscribe and follow the show for the world-exclusive news on those as they drop. However, I'm a gamer and Nintendo fan at heart, and this podcast is purely a passion project for me to talk about all the stuff that interests and excites me about this new system. It is not monetized or funded by any entity. It is completely unofficial and therefore unbiased, so that I can give my full, frank, honest opinions. So if you want to support me, or just find out about the best places to get these free daily episodes, or to join our free members area where you can talk to me and leave suggestions and take part in monthly free giveaways to win official Nintendo prizes, all links are in the bio and at linktree/dailyswitch2. That's linktr.ee/dailyswitch2. Thank you so much, and back to the episode. Okay, right, very brief recap. We'll get these out of the way super quick so we're all on the same page. Before we jump in with Pac-Man World 2, which I obviously can't wait to cover, will it be S tier? Spoilers, yes, obviously. But will it be my number 1? You'll have to keep listening to find out. Ooh, suspense. Am I a real presenter yet, mother? First up in the Partner Direct presentation, we had Monster Hunter Stories 3. I thought that was a great first game to open the show with. Switch 2 only, great graphics, big series from a major publisher. However, as we didn't get a release date, price, or any details about if there would be a physical edition, I put it in A tier rather than S. But still, a great game to start with. Very, very strong opener. Happy with that one. Second game was Once Upon a Katamari. Again, fantastic announcement. I love the Katamari series, and this isn't just a remake like we've recently had on Switch. No, this is an entirely brand new game with new features and what looks like a wealth of content. Really could be the ultimate Katamari game. The only things that kept it from being a perfect announcement for me was the fact that there's no Switch 2 version. The Switch 1 version appeared to have some technical issues with frame rate. And there are some shenanigans with Day 1 DLC and deluxe versions. So the full game is $60 and the physical $40 release is technically incomplete for launch day content, which kind of sucks, even though it's par for the course nowadays. If it had a Switch 2 version and was all on the cart, I'd have given it an easy S tier, but even so, it totally deserves an A tier placement, just slightly behind Monster Hunter. And I do hope that those performance issues won't be an issue if you're playing the Switch 1 version on your more powerful, obviously, Switch 2. Third game, sadly breaking the hype train quite considerably for me, was Just Dance 2026 edition. It's a Switch only, despite what Wikipedia seems to think, digital only, and I really find that the new art style that they use in the modern iterations of this series are very ugly and creepy looking. Plus, I now officially hate the game as it got me a copyright claim, meaning that I had to delete and then re-render and then re-upload the last episode, and that's why this Tierlist episode is going live on the same day as the bloomin' Indie World Showcase rather than at a time that, actually makes sense and would have really helped me in the algorithm. If you are listening to this despite it being released so late, thank you. I really appreciate you. You're one of the real ones. Just make sure that you remembered to like and drop a comment so that I can thank you personally. Drop by the free members area and enter the free competition to win free Nintendo stuff as well. I'd love them to go to a real fan. Linktree/DailySwitch2. And as for a rating for Just Dance 2026, screw Just Dance, you're in at E tier. You shouldn't have given me a copyright claim. Ugh. Fourth game, it pulled it back from the brink of disaster with DragonBall Sparking Zero, a fighting game that frankly I think looks awesome. 180 characters recreate pretty much any battle from any episode of the entire history of the franchise or create dream matchups. It looks really, really cool to me. However, again, there are some potential pricing, DLC and pre-order shenanigans that slightly took down my hype level when I started to dig a bit deeper into researching the game. It's also a game key card on Switch 2 as well, boo, so I'm probably going to wait for a sale or pick it up second-hand, to be honest with you, rather than paying full price on day one, which I definitely would have done if the complete experience was on the cart at base price with no DLC, etc. Oh well, it still looks very cool, and I'm sure that fans are hyped. I put it at a solid B tier. Fifth game was Plants vs. Zombies Replanted, and while I predict some people will laugh at me for it, it was one of my favourite announcements of the entire show. A remake of the original and, in my opinion, best game in the series with some cool-sounding local couch multiplayer modes. It's got a Switch 2 version, there's no multiple versions, DLC, deluxe versions, or any kind of price gouging. It's just $20 for the whole thing, nice and simple, and that earns it an S tier in my book. My only disappointment is that so far it's digital only, no physical version announced, but I can imagine a publisher like Limited Run might jump in. It's an iconic game after all, and if that happens, I will happily double dip even at a higher price. It's a great game and I want to own it, and considering it's being published by EA, they should be absolutely commended for going against their usual grain and pricing it right and not pumping it full of DLC, microtransactions, season passes and the like. Unfortunately, the same can't be said for the 6th game, also from Electronic Arts. The last game we covered in part 1, it's EA Sports FC 26, the artist formerly known as FIFA. If you haven't listened to part 1, you might be interested in going back and listening to hear me rant a bit about EA versus FIFA, the history and future of the brand, some personal stories about my family and gaming history, even if you aren't interested in football or soccer, for the large majority of my regular audience who are American. I think it is an interesting case study and look at the industry and how it's rapidly changed over the years, both for better and for worse. As a primary Nintendo gamer on console, I've not actually personally paid for a FIFA game since 2013 with the last entry on the Wii U, but I kind of want to support the EAFC rebrand, and I do think the game looks really cool, very polished, running fantastically on Switch too as well as far as I can see, so it's a game I'm pretty interested in. However, to get the full fat version with everything included is pretty pricey, and I know that nowadays the franchise has a ton of microtransaction, loot box, card pack style things too, none of which sounds appealing to an old-fashioned gamer like me who literally bought the very first game back in 93 or 94 and remembers that time as the true glory days of the franchise. Because of these mixed feelings, it's gone in at a C tier for me, literal average, right down the middle. I'm keeping an eye on it. I'm definitely interested. I do want to play it. I just might wait until the next year's edition comes out so I can pick up this version for cheap rather than remortgage my house just to have the very latest player stats, which frankly I don't really care about. I just want to kick a ball around and see some pretty graphics on my Switch too. Okay, so now on to the new games that we haven't covered in the tier list so far. The first game to cover is one I'm very excited for. 7th game that was announced was Pac-Man World 2 Re-Pac. Yes, yes, yes. If you listen to my live reaction, you'll know that I was very, very excited about this one. It's coming out on both the Switch 1 and 2. There is a physical version for both, although sadly the Switch 2 version is a keycard, but you know, that's part of the course, and as we'll cover, it's at a bargain price, so that's great. And we have a release date, amazing, September the 26th. It's coming out pretty soon and I can't wait for it. Fantastic game. I'm really looking forward to this one. So obviously by the Re-Pac, or maybe not obviously, this is a remake of a game that was originally released many years ago for the Xbox, PlayStation 2, and for Nintendo players, GameCube. It came out in 2002, I think, and later on PC. And there was a Game Boy Advance version as well, but obviously, predictably, it wasn't the same game as the Xbox, GameCube, and PlayStation 2 version. And Pac-Man World 2, obviously, was a sequel to Pac-Man World 1, or just Pac-Man World, which came out on the original PlayStation PS1 in 1999. Now, I loved the PS1 game. There are many, many great 3D platformers on the PS1, and Pac-Man World is right up there. It doesn't have the full freedom that you would get in some 3D platform games. Some of the sections are more kind of 2.5D-esque, but I really think that Pac-Man World is a great game. And we got a remake, or Re-Pac as they call them, of Pac-Man World 1 in 2022 from Now Production and published by Bandai Namco. Obviously, Pac-Man, the original arcade game, was a Namco game originally, and nowadays it's Bandai Namco. And that Re-Pac was absolutely excellent. It was a ground-up remake. It wasn't just a high-res upscaling. No, it was a ground-up remake, and I loved it. I played it. I bought it and played it to death on the Switch, and I really, really enjoyed it. So we are now getting a Re-Pac of the second game from the same developers. Thank you. I ranted a bit in my Tony Hawk's review about how Tony Hawk's 1 and 2 was a fantastic, well-received remake, and then the developers were promptly fired, and the sequel was not as good because it had different developers. No, this has the same developers, so I absolutely trust that this will be just as high quality and just as enjoyable as the first one. But this is a remake of the game which was not a PlayStation 1 game, but a PlayStation 2 game, and Xbox and GameCube and PC. So as you might imagine, it is a more advanced 3D platformer and more like what you might imagine from a fully fledged 3D platformer. Feels a bit more kind of modern. I know, it's over 20 years old now, but more modern in how it plays. And so having a modern version of this game will be really, really cool. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, Pac-Man, obviously classic maze game, one of the granddaddy games of all gaming. But you might be thinking, yeah, if you haven't played them, how good can a 3D platformer be based on Pac-Man? And isn't it just a bit of an excuse to use a character that everybody knows and put them in a platform game? Pac-Man isn't platforming, it's arcade-based maze running. No. Pac-Land, which was an arcade game which came out in 1984, Pac-Land, one of the earliest sequels to Pac-Man, was, by some people's measure, the original platform game. The original 2D platform game came out in 1984, before Super Mario Brothers, and Shigeru Miyamoto himself even admits that Pac-Land was an influence on the original Super Mario Brothers. And he said that he was visiting Tokyo and he saw that Namco had developed a platform game, and he decided that the sequel to Mario Brothers, not Super Mario Brothers, but Mario Brothers, the arcade game, should be a side-scrolling left-to-right platform game with running and jumping, just like Pac-Land was. So it's not that Pac-Land was a rip-off of Super Mario Brothers, it's that Super Mario Brothers was an iteration inspired at least partially by Pac-Land. So Pac-Land has just as much heritage for platforming as any other game. So it was fantastic when he finally got his own 3D platforming game on the PS1, and it was a quality title. And then Pac-Man World 2 is even better, and in my opinion is the best in the series, and I think many people think that as well. So to get a remake is absolutely fantastic. Incidentally, interestingly, Shigeru Miyamoto, I believe, said the fact that Super Mario Brothers has a blue sky is directly because of Pac-Land, because he saw it and thought it looked cool, whereas previously all of Miyamoto's games had just had a plain black background. If you think of the original Mario Brothers or Donkey Kong, there was no sky, it was just black in the background. So Pac-Land is indirectly responsible for the blue skies like these of Super Mario Brothers, and therefore subsequently Sonic the Hedgehog and Daytona USA. Yeah, so epoch-making decision there from Miyamoto. The Re-Pac game, it says there is a added 2-player cooperative version, which looked interesting, with the second player kind of controlling like a floating pack drone that attacks people and can get collectibles and stuff. So it's not, full co-op, but the kind of thing you can imagine a little brother or sister or a young child, as your parent is playing, or your young child can control the partner character and feel like they're getting on. The remake also adds some quality of life improvements, expands on the levels, and one nice touch, I thought, is it adds voice acting, including the voice of Pac-Man is Martin Sherman. And you might say, who's Martin Sherman? Well, he just happens to be the voice of Pac-Man in the original Pac-Man World 3. So they've got the voice actor from Pac-Man World 3 to add voice acting to Pac-Man World 2 when it gets remade. I think that's really nice to have that to have that continuity there, and really respectful of the original voice actor rather than just picking a random new voice actor. I thought that was great. So as I say, it is out on Switch 1 and Switch 2 day and date. The same price for both. The Switch 2 version isn't more expensive, so I think that's fantastic. As I say, there is physical versions. Unfortunately, the Switch 2 version is a game key card, and I don't think there is an upgrade path for those that might buy the Switch 1 version and would want to then upgrade to have shinier graphics on the Switch 2. Doesn't look like there'll be an upgrade, but there might be. We don't know. That might come later on down the line, and it just hasn't been announced yet. Bandai Namco have done that with some of their games, including Shadow Labyrinth, a game that I covered recently, which was a Pac-Man spin-off. So it's in the Pac-Man universe, and if you bought the Switch 2 version of that, it was a code in a box, so they obviously felt bad about that. So they allowed anyone who bought the Switch 1 version, which obviously is a cartridge and the game comes fully on the cartridge, they allowed people to upgrade for free. So kudos to Bandai Namco for that. So hopefully they'll do the same with Pac-Man World 2. But even if they don't, the game key card is just $30. I think $30 for this game is very, very reasonable. They could have charged much more, but $30 is a great price. Now, there is a deluxe edition, and I know I've been moaning about deluxe editions and different prices, but frankly this deluxe edition is only $10 more, and the deluxe edition, if you want it, is only $40. So I mean, frankly, $40 more than worth it for this. It's an excellent game. The deluxe edition is interesting. It comes with what they're calling a collaboration DLC, which includes collab stages, collab costume, collab figures, and a DLC bonus of legendary Pac-Land costume. Pac-Land costume really jumps out to me. That's great. As I say, the legacy of platform games starring Pac-Man started way back in 1984 with Pac-Land. So having a costume where he looks like his character in the original Pac-Land is really cool. For those that don't know, in Pac-Land he had red boots and a kind of Robin Hood-esque red hat, which followed on into some of the cartoon versions of Pac-Man in the 1980s. I don't know what collaboration DLC, collab stages, collab costume, collab figures, I don't know what the collab means in this sense. But what's interesting to me, being that I moaned when talking about previous games from this direct presentation, it says collaboration set contents to be released by winter 2025. So what that means is the DLC is not ready yet. So it's not a case of, oh, there's content that was ready, but if you want it on the first day, you have to pay for the deluxe edition. No, they're not hiding it behind a paywall at all. This is DLC as it should be, DLC that is releasing later. You just have the choice, if you want to pay your extra $10 and then be able to get that DLC at a later date when it's ready. And you get the bonus of having that Pac-Land costume. So I actually think that's very cool. It's only $10 more, and they're not hiding content that's already ready behind the deluxe edition. They're just saying if you buy the deluxe edition, it's basically like you're pre-ordering the DLC. And I think that's a lot easier to swallow. If you pre-order, you gain early access to costumes and figures. It says 4 costumes and 4 figures will be unlocked at the game start. However, again, in doing it the right way, as far as I'm concerned, this isn't costumes and figures which are hidden behind the pre-order, forcing you to pre-order, otherwise you'll never be able to get them. No, you can unlock the costumes and figures just by progressing through the game. So again, it's giving you a nice little bonus if you pre-order, but you absolutely don't have to. And I assume it's the same with the collaboration DLC as well, which it says is going to be released in winter 2025. We don't have a price for that yet. I don't know whether you're going to save yourself any money by buying the deluxe edition for $40. And the physical version is $30 and obviously doesn't come with that deluxe edition. So I would hope that the DLC, when it eventually comes out, is only $10, but we don't know. But frankly, $30 or $40 to me is an absolute bargain for this game. Oh, and one other thing, if you own the previous game, Pac-Man World Re-Pac 1, you also get a Pac-Man costume, so you basically get another character or another costume for absolutely free, just as a reward for owning both versions of the game. So again, I really love that. I think it's great when you get free rewards for loyalty by owning two versions or by buying a previous game. So again, yeah, Bandai Namco really doing things the right way, I think. I really like the way they're doing the DLC and the pre-orders and the bonuses with this game. It's not scummy at all, and I think companies like EA and especially 2K and even Sega, sadly, could really learn from this. I think Bandai Namco are doing it right. I will be buying the game keycard version. I'll probably be buying the physical Switch 1 version too, just because I'm a collector of Pac-Man and I love this game so much. But yeah, $30 or even $40 for the deluxe version, absolute bargain. And if you can't tell by how much I'm being enthusiastic about this, this goes in at S tier, obviously. And for me, sorry, Plants vs. Zombies, but it's beating out Plants vs. Zombies. This is my number one game of the announcements so far, but we still have 19 more games to go. Can it keep the number one spot? Keep listening to find out. Right, Final Fantasy Tactics, the Ivalice Chronicles. Ivalice? I should know because I've just watched the trailer and it had voice acting, but I can't actually remember how they pronounced it. I'm going to say Ivalice, the Ivalice Chronicles. Obviously, it's a Square Enix game. I say obviously because it's got Final Fantasy in the title. Final Fantasy Tactics is, as you may guess, a tactical RPG spin-off of the Final Fantasy series, which for most of the time is a turn-based JRPG, isn't it? It's based on an original PS1 game that came out in 1997. And I remember when that game first came out, there was quite a lot of hype around it, but I didn't actually play it at the time. One thing I did see people talking about is the War of the Lions content is seemingly somewhat controversially cut from this new remaster. Now, not having played the originals, I wasn't sure what that meant, so I did a tiny bit of research just quickly, and it seems that it originates from the PSP remaster, so the PlayStation Portable version that obviously came out a few years after the PS1. And that PSP version was apparently substantially changed from the original PS1 version, and the director of this game, this new re-release, has said that it's done on purpose because he preferred the original PlayStation 1 version and wanted to keep the remake here for the Switch and Switch 2 pure to the original vision of the directors and the writers, etc. So fair enough, to be honest, and it doesn't affect me as I don't have nostalgia for the PSP version, but if you do, it's worth bearing that in mind. This isn't going to be exactly the same game or story content of the PSP version. It sticks a lot more closely, thematically wise at least, to the PS1 version, although this isn't just an emulated upscale or something like that. No, this is a complete ground up remake, and it looks like a lot of effort has been put in. When I was originally reacting to the live version of the Direct, I did also say something that I always say on this show, that while I do like JRPGs, some of my favorite games of all time are JRPGs, but tend to be retro ones, because nowadays I don't really have enough time to play many of them. So it's rare that I will get around to them, even when I'm genuinely interested and I think they look good. And I especially often say that I am not generally keen on tactical games, and tactical RPGs have never really appealed to me. It's not, I've never actually played one fully, so I can't guarantee that that's my fully formed opinion. But when I have tried them out briefly, I have bought a few of them over the years, or rented a few of them and just briefly tried them out. They just have never really clicked with me. But I do like Final Fantasy games, especially the PS1 era. I really liked Final Fantasy 8. 9 is even better. And Final Fantasy 7 is, I mean, like many people, but Final Fantasy 7 is up there as one of my favorite games of all time. It's just absolutely amazing, and I play most of the spin-offs and things as well, and I'm really looking forward to the remake games on the Switch too as well. And I did say that I know that Final Fantasy Tactics is considered an excellent game. So I did say that if this game has a physical version, it might actually end up being the first tactical RPG that I actually do buy and properly bother to give a real chance and actually try and play it for real. I did also talk a little about HD 2D games, not that that's what this is, but obviously, Square have been releasing a lot of HD 2D games when they're releasing remasters or re-releases of their old RPGs. I'm not the biggest fan of the HD 2D games, because for me, I do really love retro-style pixel art when it's done well, and I really, really love modern indie games in the retro style. In fact, that's basically what I make. I mention fairly regularly on this show that I'm an indie dev myself, and basically almost everything that I make is retro style pixel art games. And for me, it's very important to keep the style consistent with how it would have been on original hardware, so that the games, you know, look and feel very much like a 16-bit game, or like a 16-bit game but kind of modernized, a bit like Sonic Mania, for example. Like when you're playing Sonic Mania, yes, technically it actually looks a lot better than the old Genesis games, but it looks how you remember the Genesis games looking in your memory, because everything is consistent, it all sticks to the same resolution. So for me, it always slightly throws me off when a game mixes resolutions, and when I'm looking at the HD 2D games, often I think, oh yeah, they do look really, really pretty, but it's very hard for me to get invested in a story when the characters look so different and so separate from the backdrop. There's just a level of immersion that I don't get there, whereas in something like a pixel art RPG from the 16-bit days, or even Final Fantasy 7, when playing on the original PlayStation, so everything's a consistent resolution, for me it all gels together well. It's one of the reasons why I don't like some of the modern versions of the original Final Fantasy 7, because they will keep the low poly models, but then they'll up-res them because they're rendering on modern hardware, but the pre-rendered backgrounds are still at the low resolution, and suddenly it doesn't gel and it doesn't fit together anymore. It's a bit like how Resident Evil 2 and 3 on the Dreamcast didn't look better than the PlayStation 1 versions. They actually looked worse because the smooth models didn't match the pixely backgrounds. But Resident Evil Code Veronica on the Dreamcast looked incredible because it was actually designed for the hardware, and again, everything all matched. Anyway, that's a slight rant. I don't hate HD 2D games, and obviously we've got 2 to get to, and actually, spoiler alert, I'm actually quite excited for them, and I think they look good, but there's just that element of it's not my preferred art style, and when it comes to somebody saying, oh well, let's remake a pixel art game from the 90s, I often think, okay, but I actually prefer the original pixel art. I recently talked about Raidou Remastered. Now, that is another remake of an old RPG, but from the ground up. And it had pre-rendered backgrounds in the original, but in the new version, it's all fully 3D. And I did say in my review, personally, I think the quality of life improvements of the modern version make it a vastly superior game. But there's definitely an argument to be made that the PS2 version with the pre-rendered backgrounds actually looks better than the modern graphics, or looks, more artistically pleasing. But the quality of life improvements mean the modern version is still better. So even though I'm not the biggest fan of HD 2D as a style, I do think it can look very pretty. And I'm aware I'm in the minority. Many people really, really love it. They get that kind of retro fuzzy nostalgia from the pixely characters, but they love the more modern, almost kind of miniature looking. What's it called? When you make models, dioramas. It's like a diorama of or like little model villages and things. It almost looks photorealistic, the backgrounds, but not photorealistic of real locations, photorealistic of models, and then the pixel art characters on top. And you can add really cool lighting effects and shading and shadows and weather and atmosphere and all kinds of things that you couldn't do, or it was very difficult to do in the old pixel art style. So they do look good. It's just, for me, for an RPG, it's difficult to get immersed when the characters and the backgrounds look so separate. For me, it's just a personal preference. However, I vastly prefer them to the other option that often happens when old 2D pixel art RPGs get modern versions. Often it's done for mobile versions, and there has been some mobile versions of some Final Fantasy games and Dragon Quest games, and to me they look, or they often, not always, but they often look awful, especially the ones originating on mobile, because like everything is given a kind of, it's all the graphics are redrawn in high-res versions, but often it ends up looking too clean and ends up looking kind of cheap or generic. Often it's very clear that they're just vector-based graphics and they're not, handmade and hand-drawn. There's just something kind of cheap or generic. They lose a lot of the personality of the original pixel art. So I assumed that that's what this was. And I didn't really pay much attention when the trailer was playing in the live version. In fact, I was still mostly talking about Pac-Man because I was just so blown away by how excited I was about the Re-Pac. So I was only like half serious when I said, oh, well, if there's a physical version and it's on the cart, then I might buy it, I might play it. But after the show, when doing my prep for this part now, I downloaded all the separate trailers to use in this video, and I watched them through full screen. And you know what? This looks beautiful. This looks amazing. The cutscenes are animated, clearly on computer, yes, but with really beautiful filters and coloring and shaders to make it all look like watercolor and soft pencil edges and hand scribbled shading. It's all so pretty and tasteful, and it just looks wonderful, in my opinion. I think they've done a fantastic job. And the in-game graphics, yes, they are higher resolution than the Pixel originals, but it doesn't have that super crisp Ultra HD vector art with perfect lines that can often make these games, like I say, they can often look almost too perfect, and therefore emphasize the simplicity of the geometry inherent with these old games, or the fact that everything is square-based or grid-based. So you often end up with what looks like a clip art ridden click and play game from a late 90s 999 games CD-ROM that you got in a gas station for $5, or maybe a bad free-to-play mobile game or a free 2000s Flash browser game. It's very easy, even if you are a very talented artist and work very hard making original assets, if they're too clean and too perfect, it's very easy to accidentally have those kind of vibes. It's one of the main things, unfortunately, that made it hard for me to enjoy Shadow Labyrinth. And again, as a huge Pac-Man fan, that makes me sad because I really wanted to love that game. But no, in this game, the art doesn't have that problem. These lines are imperfect. They look and feel hand-drawn. The colors look hand-painted. It all looks hand-shaded. I'm aware that most of it is probably filters, and but still, it looks great. It's done really well, and they look gorgeous when running full screen on a big screen. Like watching the trailer, I downloaded the trailer and whatever the highest res was, whether it was 4K or 1080, I can't remember. But I watched it on a big TV, and it just looks gorgeous. I really, really like it. Would I prefer the original pixel art, but just, in widescreen? Maybe, to be honest with you, but that's because I'm a retro head. But this looks really, really nice, and they've obviously put a lot of effort in making it a truly beautiful game. That it completely passed me by when I was reacting to the live version of the video, and it was in a small window, not full screen. I was monitoring audio, etc., all at the same time. But no, this looks so much better than I initially kind of assumed when I was just half looking at it in a small window. Also, the story, clearly from the trailer, is so a bit of me. Anti-establishment, anti-aristocracy, normal people fighting for equal rights against oppression, etc. These are things that I care deeply about. Without wanting to get too political, it's one of the reasons that even though I'm British, I choose to live in France. We're two neighbouring countries, many similarities in cultures and things, but after the revolution in France and the abolition of the monarchy, etc., and the national values of the republic being liberty, equality, fraternity, it's very much instilled even in children as they're growing up, that spirit of protesting against power, speaking out when things aren't right, when they aren't just, I am all for that. I don't go along with this stereotype of, the French people complain all the time, the French people no, I think it's the opposite. It's that in some countries, and I can certainly say this about a lot of people in Britain, unfortunately, and I love Britain, and obviously I grew up there and all my family are from there, but too often it's a case of you don't speak out when something's wrong because you're worried about making a fuss, or you're worried about being impolite, or you feel, I'm not important enough because I'm not rich, I'm not in the aristocracy, I'm not, related to anybody, I'm not, I'm not rich, nobody's going to listen to me anyway, so I might as well not argue back. So this stereotype of, French people moan all the time, or French people are always striking, or French people are always protesting against things. Yeah, that is true, but to me that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing, that's a good thing, because changes actually happen and people actually listen. Again, I'm not really trying to be political. I certainly don't want to start a fight in the comments. If you disagree with me, that's absolutely fine, and I'm certainly not saying that the situation in France is perfect. It definitely isn't. There's plenty of corruption and problems here as well, so I'm absolutely not trying to claim otherwise, but I'm just saying that these are issues in general that I deeply care about and I think about on a fairly regular basis, and I read up a lot about, and I collect history books and philosophy books. These are subjects that are really interesting to me. So an RPG with that kind of revolutionary and anti-aristocratic storytelling, it really appeals to me. And also, wow, at least from the trailer, I would say the voice acting is really good. Definitely a step above many modern remakes of old RPGs where they, as a feature, they kind of add voice acting, but it ends up being cringy and you kind of end up wanting to turn it off, especially as you can probably read the text faster than what's being said. But no, I actually might end up leaving the voice acting on because it seems to be really good, from what's in the trailer at least. I was very impressed. So yeah, this game looks great, like really, really good. As I said, from my brief experience trying a few of them over the years, I don't usually really get on with tactics RPGs, but this will definitely now be the first one that I actually give a proper, real, full chance to try and actually get into. It's out on 30th of September 2025. I'll definitely be playing it and probably reviewing it. Whether I'll get a review out immediately is debatable, because of course you can't really review an RPG until you've played it fully. Like my Ride Out review didn't come out on the day of release. Not at all. It came out much later and actually got less views because of that. But I think you can't credibly review an RPG on the day of release, can you? You have to spend time properly with it. But yeah, no, I will definitely review this game at some point. There are Switch 1 and 2 versions, which is great. Both have a physical release and seem to cost the same, only $50, which for a substantial sized RPG is a good price, especially on the Switch 2. The bad news is that on the Switch 2 version, it is a code in a box, but I think they will sell far more copies for $50, even a code in a box. Far more copies at $50 than they would have done for $70 on a full cart, even though collectors like me would have preferred that. It's actually the smart move to charge less, I think. And I can forgive code in a box Switch 2 games as long as they are at a budget price, like the aforementioned Shadow Labyrinth. And also, like the aforementioned Shadow Labyrinth, here's the real thing. The Switch 1 version is obviously fully on the cart. It's the same price, and Square Enix are including a free upgrade to the Switch 2 version for those buying the Switch 1 cart. Fantastic. Love it. Thank you. Obviously, I would prefer a proper Switch 2 cart at a reasonable price, yes, but right now, with the 64 gig cart limit debacle, it's currently impossible to do so. So Square have done the right thing here, and it's by no means what all third parties choose to do. Many code-in-a-box games at $70 or even more have no upgrade path offered. I can't criticize Square Enix here. They are making the best of a bad situation. As I said in part 1, hopefully that situation will change soon. But for now, yeah, this is pretty much the best we could have expected, unless we wanted to pay $70 to $80 to have the full thing on a cart, which personally I would have, but they would have been shooting themselves in the foot. Not many people are going to pay that for a remake of a PS1 game, no matter how much effort has been put in and how good it looks. So you're probably therefore better off just buying the Switch 1 version and then upgrading it to play on your Switch 2 for free, unless you specifically want that Switch 2 style box on your shelf. Just bear that in mind. Either way, the download is not going to cause you many problems. It's just 6.8 gigabyte. That is a tenth of EA Sports FC, and frankly, this looks so much nicer, to my eyes at least. Lots of fully animated cutscenes, beautiful high-res artwork, high-res textures, and extremely well-optimized full voice acting. Kudos for getting it all into just 6.8 gigabyte. Obviously, that's still like kind of 10 times bigger than the original PlayStation version. But as I said, this is a complete ground-up remake with lots of stuff that wasn't in the original. Like there was no full voice acting in the original, for example. There's no extra price gouging with deluxe versions, DLC, etc. There's none of that shenanigans. It's just $50, $50. There is a pre-order bonus. From what I can see, white equipment for Ramza. Ramza, I assume, is the main character. Weapon, mithril knife, accessory, spiked boots, which increase a unit's jump attribute while they are equipped. Consumable items, 10 high potions and 10 ether. Now, probably, obviously, for those who play Final Fantasy games, that's all stuff that is earnable through normal gameplay anyway, with the possible exception of the white versions of the equipment. But it looks like it's just basically a white version of a costume that already exists in the game. So basically, it's not hiding anything behind pre-orders to force you to pre-order. Otherwise, there's content that you absolutely can't get. As I say, I don't like that. It's a scummy tactic. So I really, really like the fact that this is $50. There's no deluxe version. There's no DLC. There's no season passes. And even the pre-order bonus. Yes, there is a pre-order bonus, but it's stuff that you can earn yourself through gameplay. So it's not forcing you. It's not strong-arming you to pre-order. Otherwise, you'll be missing out. This is great. I went from being vaguely interested, but not really, to, I'm definitely going to buy this. I'll probably buy the Switch 1 version and just upgrade it. But no, I'll definitely buy this. I will definitely review it. Do I want to put this in an S tier? I don't think I can go quite so far as to put it in an S tier because I'm still a little hesitant about, well, it is a code in a box. It is also available on the Switch one, so it's not a Switch 2 exclusive. And historically, I'm not the biggest fan of tactical RPGs, so this one still does need to change my mind. But I am kind of hyped for it, as you can probably tell. So I'm going to put this in A tier. So in A tier, we've got Monster Hunter and Katamari. I can't put it in front of Monster Hunter, can I? Because that is a massive game. Katamari is a game that I am really, really a fan of that series, as we discussed. But it's only a Switch 1 version. As far as we can see, there's no Switch 2 version. And I don't like a lot of the pricing stuff. So do you know what? I'm going to put Final Fantasy Tactics behind Monster Hunter 3, Monster Hunter Stories 3, but ahead of Katamari, which is crazy because I love Katamari and I don't like tactical RPGs. So that should show just how much rewatching and actually paying attention properly to this trailer has made me interested in this game. Kudos Square Enix. Yeah, looking forward to this one. Excellent. So next up was Persona 3 Reload. In my live reaction, I perhaps underreacted to that announcement. I'm sure many people are excited to play it, and it is a really, really good game. It's just that, to me, it's been remade and re-released so many times for so many systems that, personally, I have no interest in playing it again, especially when time is limited. But it's absolutely a game that I can recommend. This was a game announced that is only coming to Switch 2, not 1 and 2, so that's nice. And we got a release date, October 23rd. Brilliant. It's got a physical release as well, good stuff, although it is a game key card, and right now I can only see import copies available. I imagine there will be a Western retail release because literally the whole point of Persona 3 when it was originally developed was a desire by the devs to introduce Western people to different aspects of Japanese culture. For those that don't know, this is developed by Atlus, published by Sega. Persona itself started off as a spin-off of the Megami Tensei series called Shin Megami Tensei Persona when the game first released. But it was popular enough to become its own concurrent series. There are 5 main games, but it's very common for each game to get multiple different versions, expansions, spin-offs and re-releases. You don't have to have played Persona 1 or 2 to play this, they're all standalone. Persona 3 itself started off on the PS2 in 2006, and then there was Persona 3 FES or FES, standing for Festival, so it's probably FES, in 2007. Persona 3 Portable for PSP in 2009. Persona 3 Dancing in the Moonlight in 2018. Which was a dancing/music game based on the characters and stories, and Persona 3 Reload in 2024. Nintendo-only players may think that they already got Persona 3, and they sort of kind of did. Switch 1 got a port of Persona 3 Portable, which is an enhanced version of the PSP version, which in itself was a sort of remake and included content from FES. I think that's right. I'm far from an expert on the series. Frankly, I do find the constant re-releasing and remixing of these games really quite tiresome, and even though the actual games themselves are always quality experiences, personally I only tend to get excited about the actually new games. I really loved 5 when I played it in 2016. I've not really been bothered with anything since then, but I will happily buy and play when we have Persona 6, when it eventually comes. But 5 was 2016. That's 9 years ago, guys. So, obviously, this is the latest version of Persona 3 Reload, which is a complete remake of the original, though doesn't include the extra stuff from FES. I've heard from those that have played it that it's really good, so it's great that it's on Switch 2 for those that want to get on board. It costs $60 for standard or $90 for a digital premium edition, so it's called. Includes a digital art book with 34 pages of character art, concept art, backgrounds, and other illustrations from the game, and a digital soundtrack with newly arranged tracks from the original Persona 3, plus all the new tracks from 3 Reload, presented by the Atlas Sound team, it says, for a total of 60 new songs. 60 is a lot. It's definitely nice to have this stuff, but let's be honest, that does just amount to some JPEGs and MP3s. Admittedly, a lot of MP3s. If there was a physical version that comes with an actual art book and soundtrack CD, I could see it as being worth 90. But for a digital product, though, I don't know, man. It's hard to get hyped about it at that price, to be honest. It also includes Persona 3 Reload DLC pack, which is basically just a load of costumes for the characters to look like the versions from Persona 5 and Persona 4. So yeah, I'm sure for some like really big fans that'll make a big difference, but it's just costumes. It's no actual extra game content. So for $30 extra to get a digital art book, a digital soundtrack, and some extra costumes, I don't know, it seems a bit steep for me. But it takes up 25.4 gigabyte of space, plus the DLC, but maybe the DLC isn't that big from what's there. But as this is my own personal tier list, and frankly I'm all burnt out on Persona 3, I'm going to put it in B tier. Maybe even behind DragonBall, I'm afraid. But if you've never played it before, I can happily say that if I was in the same position, it deserves an A tier. It is a very good game. It's just one that's been re-released a million times, and the price is pretty high, in my opinion, considering really it's... Well, the original came out in 2006. So after that was Hyrule Warriors. Now, I'm a big Zelda fan, as I've often talked about on this show. However, my favourite Zelda games are usually the 2D ones, and part of what I really like about the series is how each game usually has its own self-contained story, and each Link and Zelda are not really meant to be literally the same character. In fact, the whole reason that Link was called Link, and initially was given no voice and always had somewhat of an androgynous look, was the fact that the character was meant to be the literal link between the player and the game, and you were supposed to be able to imagine yourself as them in their place. It's not like Mario, who had a specific character. Link was meant to be just a generic character for you to imagine yourself as when he was, or when they, not even he, there was no sex when Link, they were originally created. Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are obviously really, really good games, but they don't really feel like Zelda games, in inverted commas, to me, having grown up with those earlier games. It's an interesting paradox that in some ways the story feels less important in the two open world games, especially in Breath of the Wild, but then Nintendo has subsequently tried to make them the same continuity, and even adding extra lore and storylines with these Hyrule Warriors games. I find it hard to care, but I know that many people do, so I'm happy for them. And yes, I know that not all of the Hyrule Warriors games are considered canon. The thing is, these aren't really Zelda games, are they? They aren't even Nintendo games, hence why this is in a partner Nintendo Direct. They are Dynasty Warriors games reskinned with Zelda characters, which is fine, but we just need to be realistic about what they are. I know that the Dynasty Warriors games are really popular, but personally, I always found them a bit repetitive and boring. Sorry. again, I love other games from Koei Tecmo, and they do have a track record of making real quality titles, and they're very polished. It's just that this particular style of gameplay never really clicked with me, and I'm afraid I don't really care enough about expanding the story or lore of two Zelda games that I've already played for hundreds of hours and frankly moved on from. Now, don't get me wrong. I bought the first two Hyrule Warriors games. The first one on Wii U, 3DS and Switch 3 times over, and the second on Switch as well. I did give both games an honest-to-goodness try. They just didn't really grab me. And now that I've given up on my quest of collecting every single edition of every single Zelda game after the Switch 2 edition's pricing model kind of burst me out of that bubble, I'm not sure that I'll bother with this one. Maybe. But just because it's not really for me doesn't mean that it's not a huge game, especially in the context of this partner direct. For many people, this will be the #1 game of the show. So in theory, anything Zelda should be right in there in S tier, especially as it's Switch 2 only. The first exclusive Zelda game on the Switch 2. Again, if you can count it as a Zelda game. But even for rabid fans that loved the last two Hyrule Warriors games, this could have been quite a disappointing trailer. Wasn't really an announcement, we already knew it was coming, but this new trailer didn't really give us a release date other than winter, and more worryingly, no mention of either cost or whether we will even get a physical release. I'm worried about those two counts. Firstly, this is a Koei Tecmo game. We can't guarantee a proper physical cart. A game keycard with Zelda on the cover would be a tragic thing indeed. And also, given the crazy overpricing of both Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, especially not having the DLC included, yes, I'm still moaning about that, I'm concerned how much that they will try and charge for this one. $80 for a Dynasty Warriors title is not even slightly reasonable, to be honest. If they put it out as a full cart at $60 or a game keycard at $50, I'll probably bite. But more than that, and I might well sit it out, or at least wait to pick it up secondhand. As we didn't have any information about any of that, I feel justified in saying, let's put this in A tier, but behind the others. 14th of August, we have Madden, or EA Sports Madden NFL 2026, to give it its full title. Now, in part 1, I talked at length about EA Sports FC 26, and much of what I said there could apply here, really, as far as it looking like a pretty polished quality title. As long as the Switch 2 can run it smoothly and the online works well, etc., that all remains to be seen, of course. During the live reaction, I did remark that the graphics look really nice, probably even better than FC26, actually. And there were times when it genuinely just looks like a real-life TV broadcast. However, I'm British. I'm not really a sports guy in general. And while I know enough about certain sports to be able to enjoy games based on them, American football is always a game that has completely eluded me. I don't fully understand the rules, and even after I made an effort to try and learn them, it still feels frustratingly stop and start to me. This isn't a British sports are better than American sports thing. Now, I'll happily say that baseball is better than cricket any day of the week. It's not that I've not tried to enjoy American football either. I've spent a lot of time in the States over the years because of my career. I've sat with friends in sports bars. I've even had an ex who would watch the Super Bowl every year and I'd watch with her. But all I ever really got out of it was that I like the premieres of crazy high budget and high concept commercials. Sometimes the halftime show is cool depending on who's performing, and also that cheerleader uniforms are really, really hot. I wish more sports had cheerleaders. I wish I had cheerleaders just follow me around all day, not for anything perverse, just to give me constant burst of energetic encouragement to keep on working or every time I do something that I don't want to do, but I force myself to do anyway, like working out or, just getting out of bed in the first place. It's hard. I deserve some praise. But yeah, if you can't tell, I really have nothing to say about Madden because I have literally never got into a Madden game. I'm sorry. I do know who John Madden was, pressing F to pay respects right here, and I recognize his name and face literally because of these games. In fact, pretty much every sports personality that I could name, I know because of a video game, not because of the sports themselves. Sorry, that's just me. I'm not a sports guy. I also know that the Madden games are absolutely legendary, especially as they were basically responsible for the Genesis becoming popular in the States before Sonic was released. And as a big Sega fan who was always really sad the Master System got cancelled over there before you guys got the majority of the best games, it's awesome that Mr. Madden helped Mr. Kalinsky to convert Americans to the joys of service games and blast processing. I've just always been more into the NHL and NBA titles and various real football games like FIFA. I'm just kidding, NFL fans. I love you, really. But who doesn't love you? EA, if the prices are anything to go by. As with the artist formerly known as FIFA, they are milking it with the costs. $70 for the standard edition, but $100 for the deluxe, which includes, and I quote, a Hall of Fame player item, 4,600 MUT points, MUT cover athlete elite player item, franchise coach ability points, superstar legendary XP boost player card exclusive item. I don't know what any of that means and why it's worth $30 extra. I assume the MUT points are an in-game currency that you can buy with microtransactions like with most modern sports games, so I don't know if there is any kind of discount. Personally, I don't do microtransactions and real-life in-game currency, so it's just not for me. I just want the base game to be a good, fun game to play when I pick up a sports game. The pre-order of the digital deluxe version also includes 7 days early access and also early access to some solo challenges, whatever they are. I mentioned in my previous FC26 and Tony Hawk's 3 and 4 coverage that I really hate early access behind pre-orders. It's predatory, playing on FOMO, and also hoping people avoid reviews and just buy on faith. If you pre-order just the standard version, you get MUT cover athlete elite player item, franchise coach ability points, and superstar legendary XP boost. Now, I don't know, but XP boost and the previous early access solo challenges and a few of the other items all sound a bit like by pre-ordering you get a kind of pay-to-win element advantage over those that didn't. And if that's the case, that sucks. But what really sucks is that just like EAFC, the physical version is a game keycard and therefore requires a huge download. Nintendo's website says 55.3 gigabytes. Previously 62 gigabytes was reported, so maybe that's the size including the extra stuff from deluxe versions. I don't know. Either way, that is around $15 to $20 of a memory card as a hidden extra cost. And frankly, I'm sure that many people's internet connections will not really be up to the task of downloading a 50 plus gigabyte title. That's frankly ridiculous. Even more ridiculous is that it would have been easily fitted on a 64 gigabyte card. Charge $10 extra to put the game on the cartridge and not have to waste valuable space and many hours of trying to download. Or, at least allow the frickin' $100 version to be on the cartridge. As I said before, EA aren't quite as scummy with the overcharging as 2K are, but it's still way out of my comfort zone for value and being able to happily recommend it, especially when we all know that with yearly sports titles, they'll likely be practically worthless once the next year's edition releases. So, personally speaking, my initial thought was to put this into D tier, not as far down as E. Even if I don't care about it at all, I'd rather play this than just dance, after all. But Then I realized that there was no Madden on Switch, and that's a bad thing for fans, so I'm very glad that the series is getting another chance on Switch too. This is the first Madden game on a Nintendo home console for over a decade, so I truly do hope that it succeeds. Therefore, I'm going to put it in C tier, along with FC26. Though, obviously behind FC26, because, despite the obvious appeal of the cheerleaders, halftime shows, and rampant capitalism gone wild to amusing excess, soccer is still my preferred football. Hell, it's called football. Most of the time you guys are holding it in your hands. What's even going on? Next game, Chillin by the Fire. Now we're talking. Clearly the game of the show, S tier. I'm kidding, of course, but what can really be said? This is one of those things that barely counts as a game. It's more of an experience, just a simple thing to play about with. And that kind of makes sense, being it's the first video game from Oink Games, a company that usually publishes novelty board games, drinking games, party games, not digital, literal, real-life party games. So what's it about? You sit on a beach, you build a campfire. It's not a survival game or anything like that. There's no bears that try and eat you while you're out collecting wood. There's no permadeath if the fire goes out. It's not even super realistic, ultra beautiful fire and smoke particle graphics simulation as a technical showpiece. This is a purposeful, low poly, simple look. I was initially surprised when it was a Switch 2 exclusive. This could clearly run on a Switch 1. But then they showed blowing on the fire to grow it, which I guess needs the microphone. And then they showed the webcam integration, and it kind of starts to make sense. On the one hand, you could very easily ask why such a simple and seemingly throwaway experience was heavily featured on the Partner Direct when many more substantial indie games were overlooked. And some other games that were arguably more interesting were squished into the Sizzle Real and only given like 5 seconds. Unlike something like the Game Awards, I don't believe that people pay for placement in these events. I think Nintendo actually handpicks what to highlight. And there are probably many envious devs out there wondering why something that they feel they could probably easily recreate in just a few days of work deserves the spotlight. There could be a tendency to sneer and say that they activated some kind of cheat code by using the webcam features of the Switch 2 that Nintendo clearly are still trying to justify and hope that more people adopt, especially when currently only around 5% of Switch 2 owners have bought an official one. But my immediate thought was that it's actually probably something a little bit deeper. Without wanting to get heavy or political or anything else, it's definitely true that for many men, we need an excuse to socialize, an excuse to hang out, an excuse to chat. Women can just randomly phone each other for no reason. But for many men, that seems awkward, so they use activities as a reason to meet up socially. Bowling is a classic example, or here in France it's boule or pétanque, as is attending sports games, watching a match, online gaming with voice chat, or even better, barbecuing. Men gathered around the barbecue pretending to care about the fire or how the meat is cooking, but really it's an excuse to talk to each other. Fire does seem to be the most primal of those urges that all men understand, and for anyone that has ever been camping or tried to build a fire on the beach on a random evening with friends, you'll know that men just appear out of nowhere to offer advice. Friendships are forged by fire. And the sheer absurdity of having an online game about fire building with at least the pretense of the physics, placement, types of wood, etc. being important, and with the goofy-looking webcam integration, it's far more likely to appeal to most men than a dedicated chat room where you spend ages crafting your online profile to look as cool and perfect as possible. No, that would look like you've actually spent effort. By doing something that appears low effort and can easily be explained away as ironic humour. And also having the objective-based nature of building the fire and keeping it going so you can claim it's a challenge. I can see how for the right type of friend group this might actually end up being pretty great for mental health. And for that, even though it's $15 when frankly it looks more like the kind of thing that should be a $1.99 mobile game or Steam title, even though realistically most people would put it in an E tier by default, I'm going to give it an honorary S tier. And like a man hiding my emotions, I'm going to do it under the guise of hiding it behind a layer of irony. Yes, I'm putting it in S tier for the lulz, nothing to do with mental health. Seriously, this isn't for me, I don't need it. But for the right people, I feel it could be helpful, and it's a nice idea. It was a shadow drop too, so that gives it bonus points. It's out now. And you know what? Believe it or not, out of the 42 games currently out now on Switch 2, only 8 of the 42 are system exclusive, 7 really, because Welcome Tour doesn't count. And only 5 of those games are third party. There's only 5 at $15 or less too. So sure, I'd personally rather put my money into Fast Fusion for the same price, much more replay value, and it's a real game. But bro, if you want to make a fire with your other bros and you can each crack open a beer and chat, even though you can't actually get together IRL, have at it, man. Enjoy. I'm sure this is a really good game. I'm sure you're going to smash it. I bet you know everything about making fires. I bet you could make a much bigger and much better and much manlier fire than my pansy ass ever could. Have at it. I can't place it ahead of my other 2 S-tier titles so far. But I do feel good about it resting here. I'm glad this exists. What's next? Apex Legends. Right, 5th of August release. So depending on how long it takes me to make this video, then upload it, then for it to get processed, it's either going to be out now or very soon. I really have nothing personal to say about this, sadly. I don't play online games. I especially don't play Battle Royale games, and I especially don't play online free-to-play Battle Royale games. Sorry, this just is really, really not for me. However, I wouldn't be doing my games journalist job if I didn't at least tell you about the game. And what I do know is it's considered a very good game for the genre and has been an enormous success. It's in the same universe as the Titanfall series, both from Respawn, obviously. Released in 2019 originally, and by 2021 it had surpassed 100 million players, so I'm clearly in the minority by being somebody who doesn't care about this genre. In 2022, it surpassed $2 billion in revenue. Not bad for a free game, in inverted commas. But in 2024, it did lose 70% of its Steam player base. So are people even still playing it? Maybe this new Switch 2 version will bring people back or rejuvenate it? I've no idea. It's a games-as-a-service style title, and I know the games do update it regularly with new content, balancing, etc., which is good. It's currently in Season 25. Started May the 6th this year, and the Switch 2 version appears to be up to date with the PC and other consoles. I'm not sure, but I'd hope that there is crossplay with them if it is completely up to date. It looks like it is. From the trailer footage, this looks to be running very nicely on Switch 2. There was, by the way, a Switch 1 version, but by all accounts, from what I've heard from friends who do play these type of games, it ran absolutely terribly. It seems like the devs are trying to bury it and pretend it doesn't exist. While the Partner Direct made a specific point for other games of putting up a logo to show when the game was also available on Switch 1, it was notably missing for Apex. However, I did wonder, what about the people who might have been playing the Switch 1 version on Switch 2? With a little digging, I found the following on the official Apex website. When you log in, you'll be redirected to the eShop to download Apex Legends on Nintendo Switch 2. You will be able to delete Apex Legends for Nintendo Switch after you log in to the updated version. And also, the same website said, If you log into your Apex Legends account on the Switch or Switch 2 before 16th of September 2025, you'll receive the Pathfinder skin. So yeah, now you know. Look, I don't care about this game, but I know that many people do. And I know that it's considered very good, and this does look to be a good port, or at least a massive improvement over the Switch 1 version. So I'm going to put it in C tier, along with EAFC and Madden. Yes, I dislike free-to-play games with microtransactions, but being that both EA's games also include microtransactions, whilst simultaneously wanting you to pay like $100 to play them, I'm going to put Apex ahead of both of them. Just like the other free-to-play Battle Royale on Switch 2, Fortnite, there is no physical version as yet, but it wouldn't surprise me if we eventually get a code in a box or similar just to put on shop shelves for parents who know that their kids like the game and will pick it up when they see it. I don't know. For now, though, it's digital only. 31.7 gigabyte is still pretty big, but again, not as bad as the other games in C tier, in fact, about half the size. So it feels like this is the right spot. I'm sure that for some people, this is an S tier, though. But frankly, Apex Legends, if you're the type of person who wants to play it, you probably already know about it. But if you don't, I've just given you a heads up. Okay, next up was Hela. The American voiceover guy said Hela, like this game looks hella cool, but it's Scandinavian, so I'm going to say it should be Hela. Though not sure how you'd say that with an American accent. It's not Hela or Hela, it's kind of in between Hela, like H-E-H, la, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Correct me in the comments, Scandinavian people. Thank you. Anyway, it's developed by Wind Up and it's published by Knight's Peak. I've got to say, I've not heard of either of them. I looked very briefly into it, and I think that Wind Up are a new company, but I did see that the publishers also published Nico Dorico, which is a game that's been on my radar, a mascot platformer that looks great and has good reviews for modern consoles and PC, but had performance issues on its Switch 1 release. So I haven't played it because I've been hoping we might get a Switch 2 port. Not announced so far, but maybe there will be. Anyway, back to Hela. The fact the publisher has recently put out another platform game that is well reviewed bodes well for their eye for quality, I would say. And I actually really, really love the look of this game. In the Direct itself, I thought it was very cute and looked very cool. I would have easily placed it at B tier, maybe an A tier. I was interested in learning more, and learn more I did. There is a full-length trailer that I'll be showing footage of here if you're watching the YouTube version of this podcast. The footage in the Direct made me interested, but the full trailer is just so much cooler. It's a 3D platformer, and if I didn't make it clear when talking about Pac-Man World 2 and my obsession with Donkey Kong Bonanza, I love 3D platformers. I said in the live reaction that this reminded me a little bit of Stuart Little 2 on the original PlayStation, which, despite what you might assume based on the quality of most licensed PlayStation 1 games, is actually a good thing, because that game was far better than it had any right to be. Obviously, I said that because it's a 3D platformer where you play a realistically proportioned mouse, but also because the trailer for Hela showed her exploring inside a house as well as adventuring outside. But yeah, looking at the new footage in this trailer, it looks almost more like Spider-Man 2 on the PlayStation 2. Again, not a bad thing at all. The traversal was legendarily good in that game. There's climbing, swinging, gliding, and it all looks so satisfying to master and pull off. But at the same time, the game's official website describes it as a, quote, delightful blend of adventure and cozy entertainment. And it says you can, quote, enjoy exploring vast open spaces, engaging in light-hearted play, and experiencing the simple pleasure of being part of a caring community. You know what, to me that sounds pretty unique and really wonderful actually, especially given the emphasis on nature and cute animals, etc. There's also clearly tons of puzzle solving with objects, physics puzzles as well. It looks right up my alley. The storyline and themes are definitely of interest to me too. You aren't just playing as a mouse, you are the familiar of a good witch who usually works as a healer for the local village, but herself has fallen ill. So you and the other mice must find a cure for her and help run the witching business for her at the same time while she recovers. That is absolutely adorable. Also reminds me a lot of the Tailor of Gloucester from Beatrix Potter, a story which is close to my heart because it takes part near where I grew up, and when I was little you could go and visit the actual store where that book was released. And again, I for the first time saw a French language version of Peter Rabbit book this morning, Pierrot Lapin. Although anyone French can hopefully tell me, certain versions of it are Pierre Lapin, but the version I saw this morning was Pierrot Lapin. Quelle est la différence? Je ne sais pas. I'm making a big Shantae retrospective right now. I'm not sure which will go live first, this episode or that one. But in it, I mentioned that one of the games that I'm making is a Metroidvania with a cute female character, partially inspired by certain aspects of certain Shantae games in the series. I'll expand on that slightly here to say that my character is not a sexy genie like Shantae, but a cute little girl witch. And a big part of her character is it's very important to me to emphasize the fact that she is a good witch who wants to create spells and potions to heal people and do good, and is at one with nature, collaborating with animals and growing plants. It's a very positive game. Even the enemies to attack, in inverted commas, aren't really that. They are good people, good animals, good plants, or even inanimate objects, all of which have been cursed with evil energy, making them do bad things. So you don't attack them, you heal them so they get out of the spell that they're under. It's a bit like how Sonic doesn't actually kill badniks. Badniks are robot suits that are controlling the good animals or plants trapped within them and hijacking their energy. So when Sonic kills a badnik, he's actually just breaking open the robotic suit and freeing the animal or plant that's inside. I always really liked that aspect. For me as a child, again, I mentioned sometimes I'm autistic, so maybe I'm overthinking this, but as a child, I liked Mario games, but I always thought it was a little bit sad to be jumping on the Goombas and the Koopas and things and killing them, whereas Sonic doesn't kill anything at all. He rescues things. While I like the cartoony Halloweeny archetype of the evil witch, I have nothing against it. As someone who grew up with strong Celtic roots and who is friends with people who are within the witchy community, pagans and Wiccans and the like, it's important to note that the real origins of witches in real life are realistically more like the early doctors of the village, someone with an understanding of herbology and the like to use the power of nature to try and heal people. Witches only really got the reputation of being evil after more modern religions tried to scare people away from alternative belief systems. So yeah, it's not that evil witches in media offend me or anything like that. No, not at all. But personally, I always really like it when you do have a more positive representation of magic, in inverted commas, being a positive way of humans connecting with nature and trying to do good and trying to help people. So, mini rant over. Yeah, everything about this game basically looks appealing to me. The graphics are absolutely beautiful. Again, almost photorealistic in points. Looks really good. Impressed by the Switch 2 here. In the live reaction, I did notice some frame rate issues, but in the actual full trailer, they aren't present. I do note that this game is for PS5, Xbox Series, PC, and Switch 2. There isn't any previous gen support there, so it's obviously quite a taxing game, and you can see that. So I really do hope that the Switch 2 version can keep up, because I definitely want to play this. And it looks to me like it's a kind of game that would be most at home for me, at least on Nintendo. So we didn't get a release date, which is a shame, other than 2026, so next year. But it did make a point of specifying that a physical version will be available, so I'm very happy about that. Of course, that doesn't mean it won't be a game keycard. We don't know yet, so it probably will, frankly. But, of course, it's not out on Switch 1, so there won't be an option for an upgrade path or anything like that. Obviously, I'm hoping for a full game on the cart situation, but frankly, I'm buying this game regardless. This is one that I am definitely buying, unless the performance is really bad, in which case I'll buy it on a different system. So I'm going to put this in S tier. I think I'm even going to put it ahead of Plants vs. Zombies. I love that game dearly, but for now, there is no physical version. It's digital only, and I really want to own it physically. I already know that I love Pac-Man World 2, and after the previous really good remake of the first game, I'm definitely very hopeful that it will be a good game. And we also know the price and release details for that. And as I mentioned, I approve of the way that Bandai Namco is handling it. So I don't think I can put Hela ahead of Pac-Man just yet, but this definitely does deserve the number 2 place on my tier list. Really like it. Really, really looking forward to seeing and hearing more about this one. Great stuff. Star Wars Outlaws Gold Edition is next. September the 4th release date. Nice to have a release date. Switch 2 only, no Switch 1 version, so that's good also. Bizarrely, this will be the first Ubisoft game on the console. Yep, Ubisoft. One of the biggest games publishers in the world is completely absent from the Switch 2 up until now, and will continue to be for the next month or so. The new Assassin's Creed Shadows is coming at some point. We've talked about Just Dance, but as I said, there is no Switch 2 version of that one. It's a Switch 1 only game. Now, Ubisoft is a game company known for nickel and diming players in recent years, but actually in the case of this particular game, Star Wars Outlaws, I don't see anything to complain about really. There will be a physical release game keycard sadly, but $60 isn't bad for a AAA game on Switch 2, in fact cheaper than many. The Gold Edition, in inverted commas, in the title might make you suspicious, but unlike games from other publishers of AAA stuff like EA, 2K, Sega, etc., there are no other versions, no deluxe editions, no ultimate editions, no day one DLC. It's just this Gold Edition. I will assume that the game has microtransactions, but still, so far, looking pretty good compared to the others. Nice one, Ubisoft. A look over the official Nintendo eShop does say that the game includes the Season Pass, which includes, and I quote, Wildcard Story Pack, a Pirate's Fortune Story Pack, Jabba's Gambit Exclusive Mission, the Kessler Run Character Pack, the Hunter's Legacy Bundle, and the Cartel Ronin Bundle. Now, as somebody who hasn't played the game yet, I would assume that those are all things previously released for the other systems, and it's just all included here from Jump to catch up, which is pretty cool, to be honest. The fact it labels them here as a Season Pass does imply that there might, at some point in the future, be another Season Pass to buy if you want the new story packs and characters, etc. But as I've mentioned before, I've literally zero problem with publishers charging for DLC at some point at least 6 months after the release of the game, like what us old-ass gamers used to call expansion packs. What bothers me is day one DLC where content that was obviously ready right away at launch is hidden behind a paywall. That's not what Ubisoft are doing here, so again, kudos to them. Also, I'm not seeing any pre-order shenanigans. This really does just seem like a pretty good release at a fair price with no scummy tactics, as far as I can see. Good stuff. It's only 20.6 gigabyte too, so it seems pretty well optimized considering how expansive and graphically intensive this game is, and it is a new game, or relatively new, current gen anyway. So for all that, it seems pretty positive so far. Thing is, for now I am on the fence. As I said in the live reaction, I am a pretty big Star Wars fan, though I think even the biggest Star Wars fan would admit that in recent years it's definitely hit or miss as to whether a new bit of Star Wars media is to your personal taste. Some of you know that I've worked on some Star Wars stuff over the years, and I'm always careful not to dump on any specific projects because I always know people who worked on them and that they are all big fans who are excited to be working on what they're working on, so it's always tragic to me when a specific project comes out badly or isn't well received by the fanbase. And honestly, there are plenty of modern Star Wars projects that are excellent, despite what you may have heard. Not all of them, though. This particular game is one that I initially was pretty hyped for, even though, as I've often made clear on this show, I'm not really a fan of the modern Ubisoft open-world AAA formula. Everything that I saw of this specific game in the previews did look very interesting to me. But then the game released, and I did hear several people complaining about it, people criticizing the game, etc., so I didn't bother picking it up on day one, especially as there wasn't a Nintendo version. I'm still intrigued to try it out though, so I was very happy when it was announced for Switch 2, as that is my preferred way to play most games nowadays. And with this current pricing model, I could well end up giving it a go. However, the footage in the Direct made me suspicious. They didn't show any particularly expansive or taxing gameplay footage. It was all close-ups during cutscenes or gameplay when you're in small enclosed areas like corridors or small rooms. This makes me concerned that there are potentially performance issues that they're trying to mask. And when I downloaded the trailer to use in this video, it made me even more suspicious because there's no proper gameplay trailer at all on Nintendo's YouTube channel. The trailer is mostly interview footage of one of the devs talking the game up, with just a few seconds of gameplay interspersed here or there, and frankly, even some of that has frame hitching. So, I am genuinely interested in the game. I do want to play it and make up my own mind, and I do like the way that they're handling the pricing and the release. At this kind of price, I think it's kind of worth giving it a try, but if they had shown a ton of gameplay and it looked like it was running well, even despite the fact that I know others have given it mixed reviews, I would have put it, for me personally, into an A tier because I'm a Star Wars fan. I think it looks cool, the story content interests me, and they seem to be pricing it fairly and including a lot of stuff. But I'm going to have to bump it down to B tier because I am extremely suspicious that it will perform well enough to be playable on Switch 2. I'm going to wait for reviews, but I'm really hoping that it is a good port. Frankly, I'd rather that they tone down the graphics and get a smooth, consistent frame rate. I hope they work something out. So yeah, B tier, but I think I'm going to put it ahead of Dragon Ball and Persona 3. I know some people here are going to hate me for that, especially putting it ahead of Persona 3, but both of those games have pretty severe price gouging and Day 1 DLC, and are also available on Switch 1. Yes, I know it's a different version of Persona 3, but you know what I mean. So for a new game, only on Switch 2, and with a much more fair and straightforward pricing model, I think it's justified. I'm still going to wait for release, though, because it could be that the performance is just so bad that all my interest is instantly lost. Let's wait and see, and keep our fingers crossed. Cronos, the New Dawn. Cronos. Another game with a release date, great. 5th of September, not far away. And just on the Switch 2, no Switch 1 version, excellent. Looks pretty graphically impressive too, so this is a good start. Again, it's a game keycard release, boo, but for $60 with no deluxe versions or DLC or pre-order messiness. Great. This is a AAA-ish multi-plat game coming day and date with other consoles as far as I can see, so that is amazing. 24.4 gig download. So again, it's pretty well optimized for a nice-looking modern release. There was a Switch 1 game called Cronos Before the Ashes from THQ Nordic, but this is completely unrelated. It's Cronos without an H. This is Cronos, the New Dawn. As far as I can tell, despite this colon subtitle, this is a new franchise, I think. It's a survival horror. And I thought it looked pretty interesting. I liked the setting, I liked the look of the puzzles, I liked the psychological horror aspect and the time travel mechanic. I'm a big fan of traditional old survival horrors like the original Resident Evil titles, Silent Hills. I actually got a little bit of an Eternal Darkness vibe too, which is no bad thing. It's from Bloober Team, which gives me a little pause. I really liked their earlier games. The original 2016 Layers of Fear was a fantastic game. I didn't mind the sequel or the Blair Witch game they made too. They were okay. But I didn't think much of the 2023 remake/reboot of Layers of Fear, and I straight up hated the recent remake of Silent Hill 2. I felt it completely missed the mark, felt like they didn't understand why the original is considered by many to be the best game in the genre, full stop. It was practically sacrilegious to me and several others. The fact that they're now remaking the first Silent Hill after massacring my boy, the second one, it causes me actual pain. So I'm going to reserve judgment for this one. I will wait and see the reviews. But still, a new modern AAA game from a big developer coming day and date with the other consoles, looking like it runs well, not trying to nickel and dime with crazy pricing models. all of that is definitely something to celebrate, and I did definitely also think that it looks cool. So, despite my reservations, I'm going to put it into B tier, ahead of Dragon Ball and Persona 3 for the same reasoning as with Outlaws. Now, personally, I am a big Star Wars fan, so I'm inclined to keep Star Wars ahead. But the fact that they're being so cagey with showing gameplay footage makes me worry about the quality of the Switch 2 version, whereas this game showed plenty of footage and it looked nice and was running well. So I reckon it should take the lead. Next up, we had Yakuza Kiwami 2, obviously from Sega, coming out on the 13th of November. Another big game, AAA series, getting a release date. This is nice. 3 in a row. Excellent. The way they announced it was a bit weird, though, because at the same time, they kind of just threw away a very brief mention that Kiwami 1 would also be released on Switch 2 on the same day, and there would be a digital bundle of the two available at the same time. Now, obviously, Yakuza 0 was a launch title for Switch 2, had a physical release on a game key card for $50. The way they presented it, if I had to bet on it, I would guess that Kiwami 2 would also get a game key card release, probably at the same price point, I don't know. But Kiwami 1 will be digital only, I would guess, which is a shame, and perhaps only available in that digital bundle, which, if true, would be doubly a shame. That's just speculation, though. I could be wrong. At the time of recording this, Sega haven't mentioned anything about physical releasing or prices. However, Kiwami 1 is available on Switch 1 already, obviously physically. And looking at the eShop, the eShop version is only $20. So I hope that it's the same price or not too much more for the Switch 2 version. Sega have mentioned that you will be able to upgrade the Switch 1 version, which is great. But the price for that hasn't been announced yet. Probably not going to be free, but we don't know. The trailer mostly focused on Kiwami 2. As I said in the live reaction, I thought it looked cool. I liked the look of the setting. The graphics are pretty nice. The darts, the karaoke, the golf minigames, they all looked fun too. I've said before that as a Sega fan, a fan of Virtua Fighter and Shenmue, both of which are series which are part of this, or this is kind of a spin-off. And having briefly tried out a couple of previous Yakuza games before and thinking they were cool, especially with all the extra mini-games and classic arcade titles and stuff often included, it's a series that I've been kind of meaning to get into for a long time. But the fact that there are so many of them is kind of intimidating and a bit confusing too. I've heard, though, that Kiwami 1 was a remake of the original Yakuza game. So maybe that's a good place for me to start. Then if I get on with it, Kiwami 2, I'm not sure, but maybe. Let me know in the comments what you think. The lack of pricing information for now is weird. But 0 was $50 and Kiwami 1 on Switch 1 is $20. So if they bundle the both together, 1 and 2, on a game keycard for $60, I think I'd bite. As for where they go on the tier list, I'll rate them together as a bundle, and I'll put them in A tier. Again, people will hate me for it, but I think I'm putting them ahead of Hyrule Warriors. Too many potential concerns left unanswered with that game so far. And while I do love Zelda, I'm just not that into Dynasty Warriors style gameplay. Sorry. Kiwami 1 and 2, Yakuza as a whole just looks more up my street. Right, so after the 2 Yakuza games, we jumped straight into the Sizzle Real with 6 games in total. I said during the live reaction that it was frustrating because they went by far too quickly to be able to talk in depth about. And I honestly think that they were some of the most potentially interesting games to discuss. So it was a shame that Nintendo kind of breezed past them. Of course, after that, we got the 2 2D HD titles too, both of which look pretty exciting and deserve a real breakdown. And there's also games that I feel should have been included in the Partner Direct, but for whatever reason were left out, even though they were released on the same day or shortly after it and got kind of buried, which I think is a shame. We're coming up to the 1 hour and 45 minute mark here, so I reckon we're going to have to cover those last set of games in part 3, sorry. And there we will also do a rundown of the final full order of all the games, my ranking of all 26 plus maybe the bonuses as well, and compare my own order with over 4,000 readers of Nintendo Life. I'm sure that the masses would have a different taste to me, and many will place Hyrule Warriors or Persona 3 at the top or very near. I hope you've enjoyed this episode and you aren't too mad at me. Don't forget to drop a comment to let me know your favourite game of the announcement. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you. And don't forget about our free members area and free competitions to win free official Nintendo prizes. Links for everything are at linktree/dailyswitch2. That's linktr.ee/dailyswitch2. Go check out the Shantae video too, if it's up, if you haven't already. It's a real fun deep dive, and if you want the new game physically or you want to get the older games while on sale, there's a deadline for both. It's definitely worth looking into. Shantae is one of my favourite game series of all time. If you don't know it, you're missing out. Catch you all in the third and final part of this epic breakdown. Later.